South Australia, where the wine industry today is really concerned about this situation with China. There was the interim measure that China took with the 220% tariff for what they said were anti-dumping measures. Now it's been put in place for 5 years on Australian wine, and producers in the Coonawarra and also across the Barossa and Clare regions and McLaren Vale and Langhorne Creek and just a whole range of places in South Australia where we're one of the premium wine producers, like in the Riverland, there is real concern today. Prime Minister Scott Morrison says China is putting up the price of Australian wine in retaliation for Australia standing up for its values, and that's not okay. China's Ministry of Commerce has announced these new measures, which kicked in yesterday and will last for 5 years, are part of their anti-dumping measures. Mr Morrison completely rejects that, and he says that he's called for non-tariff restrictions. And Mr Morrison basically says that Australia is standing up for its values, and this is retaliation for those values. The Prime Minister said Australia stood alongside the UK in condemning the treatment of the Uyghurs in Xinjiang province, and that Australia's allies had also come under sanctions for their position. And that the Minister for Trade, Tourism and Investment, Dan Tehan, earlier called the decision extremely disappointing and completely unjustifiable, pledging to do everything he could to reverse it. Beijing has launched trade strikes against a range of Australian products, including coal, barley, beef, lobster and timber. Mr Tehan said such decisions make it hard to continue to work with the Chinese government to develop the economic relationship between the two countries. And he said he'd spoken with the Australian wine industry and was looking to take the issue to the World Trade Organisation. Now, 5 years is, in a sense, a very long time. And when you see that, you think, no, something's not right with the actual timing. If you said a few months and then it was investigated by the WTO and then, they could have an outcome or an arbitrated outcome. The decision, though, by China last year to impose the temporary tariff, and now virtually without any arbitration at the WTO to put a 5-year tariff in, clearly is not to do with the price or the consumption of wine or how much we send or don't send to them. It's clearly political in its orientation, and, Prime Minister Boris Johnson of the UK is supporting Australia in this, said Scott Morrison. I'm not sure whether that is in an effort for Scott Morrison to sell more wine to Boris. I think a free trade agreement with some wine would be in order, and maybe Scott Morrison needs to work very quickly and very hard at getting this in place, given the free trade agreement that was formed by Malcolm Turnbull with China has been an abject failure. And if Mr Morrison is right and Boris loves Australia and supports Australia, then isn't it time to get Boris to sign a trade agreement and drink more Australian wine? And beer too, probably, if it was Boris's preferred choice. A bit of the barley product too could help some of our brewers.